What's up guys, my name is Brandon Stanley and I want to welcome you back to the vlog today. So what we have going on in today's video is that I'm going to be telling you guys 5 things that I regret doing to my modded BRZ. So we're going to start off with this at number 5, and I want to put a little disclaimer in here. I am going to be talking about some parts and specific manufacturers. I'm not saying these parts do not work or not quality parts, they just specifically did not work for the setup that I had on my BRZ. So anyway, number 5 is going to be the Crawford AOS system. What this thing is supposed to do is supposed to be a zero maintenance air oil separator. So any blow by that's, running through the system, it's supposed to be caught and return it back in the engine, where unlike a catch can, you have to drain it periodically. With this, you didn't have to do any of that. But the issue that I had with it is that it recirculated boost. So I got on the forum, started reading about this here specific part, and what I found out was that this is a extremely common issue that people were having, and I didn't do my research on these parts before I went and boosted my car, so I never had that knowledge. But with that being said, now I do know, and it's off, and I'm running radium dual catch cans, and I have not had the first issue with this catch can setup at all. So my personal number 4 biggest regret with what I have done to this BRZ actually started before this car was really even modified. So whenever I first decided I want to go turbo E85 and do all the supporting mods to be able to support the additional power and heat, everything of that, I didn't take the reach to try and get sponsors to do this build. Now my car is sponsored by Mishimoto and Aeroflow Dynamics, so huge shout out to them. But I already had their parts on my car before I ever built it. Before I ever reached out to them and said, hey, this is me, this is what I do. I would like to sponsor you guys and you guys sponsor me with parts. So now that I have that set up and reflecting, I could have probably saved, a lot of money with this specific build here had I reached out to them prior, explained what I was doing, what benefit they could get from sponsoring me, and what benefit I have from them sponsoring me. So that would be something I recommend to everyone. If you're going to dive into a build and you have a following, or you have some sort of reach to be able to say, hey, I can benefit you as a company if you give me discounted parts or if you sponsor me with parts, I highly recommend it, because now my car is built and I can't go back and be like, hey, so how about these discounts? It doesn't work that way. So that would be my number 4 regret, is not reaching out to sponsors prior to building my car. Alright guys, my 3rd biggest regret is that whenever I went into the process of modifying my car, I rushed myself. And it caused a lot of long-term issues that I just now recently, actually this past week, got everything tidied up on this car here, where I'm no longer leaking fluids. I'm not having any vacuum leaks. Everything's routed correctly. My catch cans are working properly. I don't have a single complaint now, because I went back and took the time to slow down and do things the proper way, which I cannot stress enough. With something of this nature here, where these FA20s are very finicky with what you do to them, you have to take your time. Like, I have a lot of money into this build. A lot of people have a lot of money into their builds, and if you rush it, you're going to cause issues. You're going to potentially damage other parts, and you don't want that to happen. I mean, you put your life into what you're building, and if that's the case, then slow down, do it right the first time, and you won't have these repetitive issues like leaks and any damaging any other things, because you didn't take the time to get the proper research. And that's my number 3, is I just did not research enough, and I bought things without understanding how the whole system worked together. So now on to number 2, and I know this might be like kind of misleading, I guess, but if you would have told me 2 years ago when I bought this car I was going to do all of this here and put all the money that I have put into this car, I would have put it into a different car, because my initial intentions was to only do some like aerodynamic suspension work and have a fun like canyon carving, hills climbing kind of vehicle. And I went way above and beyond with what I initially intended to do. So if I could probably go back 2 years ago and tell myself, don't do it, probably wouldn't have done it. But now with that being said, I do absolutely love my car for what it is, but you can never reach in the engine bay and pull money out with that. And it just kind of sucks, I guess, because say I build a 5.3, a 2J, a 6 liter, any LS engine for that matter, and I put the money that I've put into my BRZ into the LS engine, dude, I'd be making some crazy power. But I'm also known for my BRZ and the fact that around where I live, there is no other cars remotely even like this to this extent at all. So like, I do enjoy the fact of being unique in my area or whatever, and that not too many people go this crazy here with a BRZ FRS 86. And so that's cool and all, but you can never, you know, I would never build another FA20 and put the money that I put into it again. And that's just my preference. I would have definitely went with a 5.3, probably a 2J if I would have known. But this car here has been the car that's introduced me into the automotive world and about modifying cars. So like, I always have this deep respect for it, but you can never get back your time and money years down the road. But if I could, I would definitely have built a 5.3. All right, and now for the last and final number one of what I extremely regret about my modified BRZ is that after I did do all of this here, turbo, all the setup that you guys see now, the injectors, the whole fuel system had changed, the air system had changed, and I needed a tuner. So I knew I wanted to get tuned through Ecutech, which is the best tuning software that you can get your hands on for the BRZ. And I just so happened to find one that was an hour away from me when I lived in Tennessee. So I called him up, said, hey, I got this BRZ, let's get it tuned, and let's, you know, I'm wanting to make like 400 horsepower. I have everything to support that, so it wasn't an unrealistic goal. So I go and take it to this shop, and it was, I invested thousands of dollars into them to get this car where it needs to be. And every time I've ever left there, and I've been there 3 or 4 times, I've been extremely dissatisfied with the results. And it wasn't in the matter of they couldn't have made the car do it, but they chose not to make the car do it, because it's got everything it needs to be at that tier of power for what's put into it. And they was just choosing to not take the time and not to communicate with me about where we needed to go to get this car there. And that's a lot of time and money I have personally wasted. So now here I am, after I finally got the new clutch in, all this other stuff that I've just been tidying up the whole system so I can make the power that I'm trying to make out of this car. And I'm searching for another tuner. Well, luckily Michael's tuner, Derek Robinson, so shout out to him, put me in touch with someone that works with him at IMV Performance. His name's Jeff Kerr. He's been awesome so far. We've been emailing back and forth about what we need to do to get this car to where it needs to be. So like, within an hour of talking to this gentleman, he had pointed out several little things that I needed to change with my current setup to be able to get it there. And one of those things was a wideband, and I've been having an issue with a cutout at 114 mile an hour. Per se, I went that fast, you know, and I couldn't figure out why. My old tuner could not figure out why. And I think it just came down to the fact that we were both uneducated on what we was trying to do with this car. And I'm not putting his name out there because they do amazing work with other vehicles, and I'm sure other clients have been super happy. And I just think this car was not for them. And it sucks that I've put the money that I have into this tuning facility that once again I can't get back. But I'm hoping that I can build new relationships with this new tuner that I've been in contact with, and that we can really get this car where it needs to be. Because right now, my personal goal is to make this the world's fastest BRZ on the stock block. And just to kind of fill you guys in, it's not an unreachable number. I believe it was in 2014, there was a boosted BRZ that ran an 11.3 at 127 mile an hour. And the BRZ's got everything she needs as far as bolting parts on goes, and the rest of the parts that I just ordered last night will be here so we can finally get this tune rolling. And we're gonna make it happen. So I really hope that you guys kind of take something away from this. Even if you do not own a BRZ, you need to do your research if you're trying to get to the max output of what an engine can support, because the wrong part, the lack of you know, the part that you need can cause detrimental issues in the future, being a blown engine, lifted heads, you know, you name it, it can happen just from the lack of someone that wants to take the time to be able to put, you know, their time into it to make the tune perfect. And that's what I have to have on this car here to be able to reach that goal, the world's fastest stock block BRZ. And I'm hoping that the relationship that I can build with this new tuner will be better than what I had with the old tuner. And that's really where, you know, I'm gonna put this at. If you guys have any questions on getting your BRZ tuned or modified, all you have to do is let me know and I'll be as helpful as possible, because I've been through the ringer. I've put parts on I didn't like, or parts that didn't make an impact. So that's also why at the end I ended up going a boosted route, because you're not gonna make the power that you think you should from an NA setup on these without a built block. And at that point, like, you're gonna have the same price into this, except from, you know, you're not gonna be making 400 horse, you're gonna be making 300 with a built block and an NA setup. So that is going to be it for today's video, guys. If you have not already, please subscribe to the channel and I will see you next time.